welcome back, everyone. We are doing our Right Now Ask Me Anything podcast, our interview today. Before we get started, I do want to tell you about NRN Plus. It's a premium membership for the New Right Network. So you can support conservative, independent media for just $9.95 a month or $79.95 for the year. If you like what we're doing, head over to www.nrnplus.com and you can subscribe. Welcome right now onto the New Right Network. I am your host, MT Arthur, and with me today is Catherine Rodriguez. And Catherine, you have a new book that you are going to be discussing with us today, correct?
Correct.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
So basically, it's all about Joe Biden's lists of gaffes. It's about a list of flip-flops, votes that go one way or the other, and he can't make up his mind on them. And he also has made up stories that he's told throughout his life, and just dumbfounding moments that make you scratch your head and wonder, did he actually say that? And he also said some pretty racist stuff throughout his life, so I also included some of that in my book too.
Okay. I'm sorry if I am listening to you. I'm just trying to get our Ask Me Anything lined up here so I can get everyone's questions in. So it's the name of the book is Quotable Joe?
Yes, the Quotable Joe, Corn Pop, Dog-Faced Pony Soldiers, and Other Malarkey from America's Most Embarrassing Candidate.
And I'm sure you had no lack of things to write about with this book.
Yes, I had a ton of quotes that I basically had to choose from, like from his famous "You Ain't Black" line in his interview with Charlemagne the God, to if you walk into a 7-Eleven, you can't.
You there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay. It sounded like you cut out.
If you can't go into a 7-Eleven or Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent, I'm not joking. And he also said poor kids are just as bright as white kids. So his quotes just run the gamut.
Now, did you have to do a lot of research, or because I know a lot of the things that we just mentioned are things that have been widely reported on, but did you research and find other stuff that you hadn't heard in the mainstream media?
Well, I had to do a lot of digging to quotes that have been reported on in the past and have been, so I had to do some unearthing back to newspaper clippings from 1984, back to when Joe Biden admitted to his law school plagiarism when he was a student at Syracuse University. And
didn't he also say that he went to another school that it turns out he never went to?
Yes, he said he went to Delaware State University, which is a historically Black college, but instead he went to the University of Delaware for his undergraduate studies, which is not a historically Black college.
I know, because I went to what we call directional school. I went to Eastern Michigan University. It would not be difficult for me to not confuse Eastern Michigan with Michigan University, which is only a couple miles away, but I would know the difference between the two schools. You think he would as well.
Right. And there's just so many different instances where he confuses things. Like in one example, he mixed up his wife's name with his sister's.
I did see that on he was pointing to one and then was confusing the two of them. I've also seen where he's gotten his grandkids confused with his children.
Wait, what?
I saw where he got his grandkids confused with his children.
Yes, yes.
Is there anything that surprised you as you were writing this book, in your research, or just the things that you were writing about?
Well, I was shocked at how many gaffes that has come up throughout Joe Biden's entire career, spanning 36 years as a senator and 8 years as a vice president. And even beforehand, when he was a college student, like, he actually told a made-up story about how he was chasing some lovely women and going to their dorm room, and how he basically bragged how he got arrested by a policeman when he didn't.
Would that be the type of like sexual harassment type of story that, say, maybe if Trump had appointed him to the Supreme Court, that might be like a big deal?
Well, it would be a big deal if he weren't a Democrat, because there's always this double standard in the media with Republicans and Democrats being with sexual harassment scandals.
Mm-hmm. It fascinates me, like, with as much as we heard about Trump and the NBC, news locker room talk, as big of a deal they made about that, they then put Joe Biden up for the nomination. And that still just amazes me, because I just can think of many examples during the Obama administration where he had put his foot in his mouth.
Right.
Now, is there any stories or anything that you think every American should know, that you discovered?
Well, I think every American should know about the way he treated Anita Hill during the Supreme Court hearings.
Absolutely.
I mean, he
not just that. I think how he treated Clarence Thomas.
Yeah, I mean,
watch a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, he treated Anita Hill like he treated Anita Hill in a way where he showed no remorse towards her, and basically was very harsh on her in the hearings, and it was all because he didn't want Clarence Thomas to be on that bench.
Mm-hmm. I had to do a couple stories, and I looked back at some of those videos, and the condescension that he exhibited during that process, just in the little that I watched, and I just grabbed some random clips, was pretty amazing to me. Did that come off to you?
Yeah.
That's I still, for someone who even back then was aspiring to be president, it was very off-putting. And I think it's important for people to know he dropped out. I believe it was it 90, or was it 88, or was it 92? He dropped out of the presidential race for a plagiarism scandal.
Yeah, he dropped out in 88 after he plagiarized from Britain MP Neil Kinnock's life story, and he basically used it. He listened to his campaign speeches and got inspired by it, and he started using that in his campaign material. And when they found out it was plagiarism, it basically did him in the 1988 elections.
It's funny, because back then we were actually willing to hold, our politicians accountable. Nowadays we literally have politicians, actually, I think from Delaware, who have completely made up stories about serving in Vietnam and never served in Vietnam. So it's interesting how our standards have changed over the 40 or so years. but it doesn't seem that Joe Biden has. Or did you notice any change in him in the course of the stories you were reading?
In the changes in what?
In Joe Biden, has he changed at all? Has he learned from any of his previous mistakes? Or
I think he's just the same old sleepy Joe making those same old gaffes, because I've covered the same gaffes when I was reporting on the 2020 election for Breitbart, and it's just the same thing. What office did I hold? Like, it's like he slips up and he says he was a congressman instead of a councilman. And
I think if it were one or two times, people could probably understand that, okay, this is, just a slip of the tongue, or maybe, a little bit of confused memory, but it seems like it's a pattern throughout his career.
Right. And he also said my name is Joe Biden and I'm running for US Senate. And he didn't take back his mistake.
Yeah. And I believe he actually referred to himself as Senator Joe Biden as well, instead of vice president, which would be the appropriate term for himself to use. Because, you go by the highest achieved. With your book, what do you hope people get out of reading it?
Well, I hope that people get a good portrait of the way Joe Biden speaks, acts, and basically who he really is.
Now, do you think having researched all this, do you think you have a good sense of who he is?
I think I have a good sense of who he is after researching it. But then again, you never know. There's something that can always come out of the left field with the amount of gaffes that come out of this man's mouth.
Would you describe him as a good person, as a person that you'd want to have a drink with, as a person that you would want to know, just casually?
I would say he's not a person I would want to be running my country, but I would say he's also a person who's lied and who's made up some things throughout his life. I mean, for some people who might want to have a beer with him, it's not like George W. Bush, where it's like you might want to have a beer with him, but with him, it's just like he's feeble-minded at this point, and he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Now, it's funny you use the term feeble-minded, because there's been a lot of discussion about his health, about his cognitive mental abilities. Did you see any? Because I know he says a lot of things, and they could be memory slips, but did they seem more frequent at this time, vice, in the past?
Well, I think now that he's an older candidate than he was, say, in '88, I'm not a doctor, so I can't determine how much of a cognitive decline he's gone through, but I can shine a light on how much he's diminished in his quality of speech since he's run as a senator in '88 for when he launched his first bid for president, and when he ran again in the following years to come.
Now, there was a lot made during the debates where he challenged President Trump on several things, but yet it seemed like the moderators were unwilling to really challenge him with things on, say, the crime bill of I believe '92. Does your research go into anything along that, or just on the way he was portrayed in the debates?
Yes, I actually do mention the 1994 crime bill in my book, I actually talk about how he said nobody should be in jail for a nonviolent crime. He said that during the third Democratic primary debate in September 2019. And he brought up the idea of ending prison sentences for nonviolent crimes. But he spent much of his Senate career advocating for tough on crime policies, especially when he authored the 1994 crime bill. And he went on national television in 1989 to push for the war on drugs. And he actually went on national television in 1989 to criticize then President George H.W. Bush for not doing enough to escalate the war on drugs. And he said, quite frankly, the president's plan is not tough enough, bold enough, or imaginative enough to meet the crisis at hand. And he just wanted harsher punishments for drug dealers, and he wanted to put away in prison cells for a long time and actively called for more incarceration.
And I think it's important to note, again, and I apologize that it was 1994, not 92, that his version of the bill is actually the one that eventually did become law, correct?
Correct.
And yeah, a major reversal in terms of policy from what he was saying here just a couple months ago. But it's interesting that he wanted tougher war on drugs, because now almost every pundit virtually agrees that the war on drugs was an abject failure. That's the limitations they put, the minimums they set didn't equate to the drop in crime that they wanted. However, at the same time, crime has gone down, but the reason why seems to be more linked to economic factors. Would you agree?
Yeah.
It's very interesting to see how people are willing to just kind of wipe the slate clean on that. Whereas with President Trump, they were still making major issues. I believe, what was it? The 5 young men who were arrested in Central Park, who were believed to have raped a woman. They still bring that up because Trump was in favor of incarcerating them. I believe that they were eventually exonerated, but at that time, we didn't have all the information that we do now. But they still hold Trump to a very high standard. But yet with Biden, we have a very well documented case of people who are in jail for mandatory minimum sentences that had devastating effects on certain ethnic communities here in the United States, and that all just seems to be the slate wiped clean and everything's a reset. So that's very interesting. I do want to go back also to the Clarence Thomas hearings. Did you watch any of the videos where he quoted people using the N-word?
Wait, I'm sorry. What'd you say?
During the Clarence Thomas hearings, did you see the part where then Senator Biden was quoting people who had used the N-word?
I don't think I did, but
okay. I just bring it up because I did watch those clips, and I found it very kind of disturbing how I understand he was quoting. I believe he was actually supposed to be quoting Clarence Thomas, but he says the N-word back then with a very casualness that definitely would be unacceptable today, especially to the ethnic communities that he was trying to get the most support from. So that to me just kind of stood out in research I had done. I just was wondering if you had come across that at all.
Yeah. I did come across a time where Biden did use the N-word in comments when he was quoting racist comments, because he was quoting a racist statement from a Louisiana state legislator during a redistricting process overseen by a deputy attorney general nominee, and he was questioning the nominee in 1985 during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing, and he used the racist comments to build a case against Reynolds' nomination, asking Reynolds repeatedly if Louisiana was intentionally discriminating against Black residents by opposing a majority Black district. And the quote was, "We already have an N-word mayor. We don't need any more N-word big shots," Biden said during the hearing.
That actually might be the section that I had watched. And yeah, I was more taken aback, not so much that he was giving the quote, but just how casually he said it. Because I remember, back then I was a kid, but it was still a word with a very high stigma even then. If you could you talk a little bit more about some of the gaffes that he's had? Things that maybe people are not as familiar with.
Well, there was one gaffe where he spread panic about the swine flu on the Today Show, where he told Americans not to fly or take subways. And he said, "I would tell members of my family, and I wouldn't go anywhere in confined places now. It's not that it's going to Mexico, it's that you're in a confined aircraft. When one person sneezes, it goes all the way through the aircraft." And let's see what else in here. There's also when he botched a quote from the Declaration of Independence while at a campaign event in Texas in March 2020. "We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created by you know the thing." And he struggled to remember the words of the Declaration of the Independence. And at the same time, at that same event, he also made another screw up when he asked voters to show up in a big way for him on Super Thursday. "Look, tomorrow's Super Thursday," he said before he corrected himself. But then he said Tuesday. He continued as the crowd chuckled. "I want to thank you all. I tell you what, I'm rushing ahead, aren't I?"
One that stood out to me was when he seemed to be talking about beating President Trump, but instead he seemed like he was trying to call him George Bush. Did you see that one?
Wait, which one?
Where he thought he was referencing beating President Trump, but it seemed like he was talking about George Bush. And a lot of people made a huge deal of it, just trying to dismiss it away because I guess he was in a discussion with another George at the time. I believe even Tucker Carlson kind of moved past it. Did you see that one?
I don't think I heard of that one, but
it came late in the campaign. But yeah, it seemed like he was referencing trying to beat George Bush for the presidency instead of trying to beat President Trump. Because that was one that stood out for me, not just because of the gaffe, but because how dismissive people were. They were willing to just move right past it because apparently he was talking to a George at the time. I don't know the full situation that it was in. I just remember seeing the clip. But it really did seem to me like he was talking about George Bush. So I just wanted to see if you had seen that one. Any others that you think are notable or funny?
Well, let's see. He also, in 2008, at a Springfield, Illinois campaign rally, Biden introduced then presidential hopeful Barack Obama when he let his tongue slip. "This election year, the choice is clear," Biden said. "One man stands to deliver change we desperately need. A man I'm proud to call my friend. A man who will be the next president of the United States, Barack America." And then
Yes, more?
there was another one where he said in a February 2009 interview with CBS News, Biden was promoting recovery.gov, a federal government website created for the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, but he didn't remember the web address. And he said, I don't know the website number. I don't have it in front of me, and I'm embarrassed. And this was on live television.
Now, I know a lot was made about President Obama and his gaffes, which always seem to be linked to teleprompter issues. But you think, because Joe Biden is so prone to gaffes, you would think that he would be even more dependent upon the teleprompter. Did any of these seem like teleprompter mishaps, or just him?
I think it's just him. I mean, I'm actually surprised he doesn't stick to the script more often, given his that he's so gaffe prone. I mean, there's even a quote at the beginning of my book where he says, I am a gaffe machine. And it's my intro to chapter 2. It says, I'm a gaffe machine, but my God, what a wonderful thing compared to a guy who can't tell the truth, he said. I'm ready to litigate all those things. The question is, what kind of nation are we becoming? What are we going to do? Who are we?
That's, if he ends up with the presidency, right now there are some people calling him the president-elect. The president obviously is fighting it. Do you think we will have 4 years of Joe Biden?
Well, I mean, that all depends on the legal challenges and the voting recounts and how the Electoral College votes in December. Bottom line is we need to see how all the facts play out and all the legal challenges play out.
Are you doing any research along those lines for maybe a next book or a follow-up to this one?
This could be a follow-up material for a next book. Yes, indeed.
That's do you think let's say the challenges fail, the House of Representatives takes the electors, and Joe Biden is the next president. Do you think we'll have 4 years of Joe Biden if that occurs?
Wait, I'm sorry?
If the electors do stand and the House does certify the election and Joe Biden is inaugurated on January 20th, do you think we will see 4 years of Joe Biden in that circumstance?
Yes.
You think he has the mental capacity to last?
I'm not sure. I mean, again, I'm not a doctor, so I can't say whether he does or doesn't, but I can continue to shine a light on his follies and his foibles, and it would be 4 more years of material for future books.
I think you definitely have a little bit of job security there. So I think he's going to give you a lot of material. That's for sure. Would you agree?
I agree.
Well, I do want to go ahead and start wrapping everything up. If you could, please go ahead and give your plugs one more time. The book is The Quotable Joe, correct?
Yes, The Quotable Joe, Corn Pop, Dog-Faced Pony Soldiers, and Other Malarkey from America's Most Embarrassing Candidate. And you can find it on Amazon, where you can buy it as a paperback or in Kindle.
Well, I really do thank you for joining us today. Are you on Twitter or on any social media where people can follow you? Or
yes.
Can you give any places where they can get your book?
Yeah, you can follow me at KROD315 is my Twitter handle. And that's the same for my Instagram handle.
And where could people pick up a copy of your book? Is it just Amazon, or is there any places that you think that they should definitely go to?
It's an Amazon exclusive. So if you're looking for a last minute Christmas gift to get your conservative friends, go and buy it on Amazon. I'm sure they'll love it.
Well, again, folks, the book is The Quotable Joe. Catherine Rodriguez, thank you very much for joining us today. I look forward to any new books that you might have, and we would hope to invite you to come back and talk with us again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you again for joining us, and thank you to our audience for submitting the questions.